All right, what's up, folks? Just testing, make sure things sound good. I will be right back, and we're going to get started. All right? All right, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're listening to this from. It is nice to see your smiling faces. It's been a hot minute. I've been very inconsistent on this channel, so I've got a few things to do in the live stream. I'm going to cut it up into other videos, so if you miss out now, you can just come back and watch them later. First of all, my inconsistency. Part of that was in January, contracted COVID. It was the whole thing. Quarantine, sick for 3 days, fever, shake, chills in bed. Disrupted a whole lot of things. Luckily, okay, doing all right. Still don't have a perfect taste of things or smell. That just seems to be how things are going. But outside of that, super grateful for the progression not leading me into the hospital or more significant issues with my immediate family and such. I've also been dealing with some attempted impersonations, signing up as me online, including a straight up evidence of someone trying to impersonate me on a BCBA account. As well. So that's been just like a mess to be dealing with. That being said, most of that's kind of behind me. I've been working on getting back up to speed, catching up with what's going on in the world and behavior analysis, reading some of my own. I have some things to share with you today, but expect more content, or I guess the typical uploads to start coming here soon. I'm going to share in just a minute how I built a habit of reading some different ABA books. I call it a habit loosely. But first, I wanted to share a few things that are going on the channel soon. I've got some member meetups. Member meetups are designed to where people that support the channel in some sort of way on Patreon can jump in, listen to experts, be part of things that where you share ideas, get to learn more, talk with these experts, but also things that turn out to be on the channel eventually. I don't put the entire meetup out there, so there's times where people discuss things, seek some advice, things like that. And that's part of the member meetups and like perks of being a member that don't make it on the channel. So a couple that are coming up here soon. First of all, I have two fantastic people. First of all, I've got Kent Corso as well as Abigail Calkin that are going to be jumping on talking about behavior analysis and military and veterans issues. This will be next Thursday, so that's going to be publicly posted tomorrow on social media accounts and such. Really stoked. These are just 1 hour meetups where people get to learn about what's going on with respect to behavior analysis in that area. And then we open up for some Q&A and see where those sort of things go. It's a time to kind of amplify and put things out there as well. Another one's going to be happening in March that I'm pretty excited about is Dr. Shane T. Spiker. He's been on the channel numerous different times. We're going to have Shane March 24th. This is going to be a conversation around the new ethics code for behavior analysts. So that was announced that it's going to be started in January 1 of 2022. They released the code on the BACB's website. We're just going to kind of look through there, do what I would say is like a loose reading / reaction, thinking out loud about the implications. Largely, they look fantastic and like a move in the right direction. It's just going to be a thing out there to try to put a piece of content that says, hey, if you don't know about this, you should, as well as just kind of ideate and chat amongst the group about what we think about them and some of the implications of those. So that'll be happening. And then I have one more. This is tentative, but I think it's going to be locked in. So I'm going to announce it now as well. This should happen pending I get some reading done in preparation. But a fantastic gentleman, Francis Mechner, one of the founders of, the creator of Mechner notation. We're going to talk about aesthetics and the governance of human societies, which might seem like completely different and separated things, but they're 100% relatable when you start to understand what it is that he's put together conceptually. And if you do not know Francis Mechner, unbelievable stuff. I made a quick video about the work that he's done. in the teams, and I'll actually bring it back up when I get into the Sundance segment. So those are things that are coming onto the channel soon. I always take ideas and such, so if you have any ideas, please use the chat box to check them out. What's up, Avila? Good afternoon. Vanessa, hello. It's good to know you're much better now. Yes, that's COVID stuff. Avoid it if you can. 3 days of fever at 102, chills, worrying about if I had to go in the ER, and then about 10 days to 14 days of like lingering symptoms, and then it was about 2 weeks after that, so a total of a month to get my cardio back up, and I think I'm feeling about back to normal. But yeah, it was a little intense and insane. So Godspeed to whoever may be dealing with this sort of stuff. And I have been continually thinking about things about how do we behaviorally organize and get people to pay attention to systems and preparation, which seems to be something that's very difficult. So that's the end of segment 1. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this afterwards, let's jump into the next thing, because I only have 30 minutes to knock this live stream out. So the next one was, how did I build a habit of reading ABA books? I find a lot of people ask questions about test prep services, getting ready for the BCBA exam. I'm an adjunct professor for a couple units for like an entry course into the principles of behavior analysis online. And so I wanted to make something about this technique that I was taught. I don't know if it's going to be useful for you. You can measure and figure that out on your own, right, with your behavior analytic skills. But there was a technique that I use still to this date that I was taught when I was trying to consume a bunch of things. First of all, conceptual stuff, philosophical stuff. Those articles in JUB or those writings maybe by Skinner and such that when you first stumble on them and you try to read and you're just like struggling to get through. And it might be that you're super stoked. It's not that there isn't like a motivation operation for this, but what it is that there's a lot to get through, or maybe it was written 60, 70 years ago, like something like this. And it's just not what you're maybe used to. You're learning new words and such. That was how I struggled. That was my issue getting into behavior analysis. And I still struggle, depending on the content, of getting through it, even though I know it's valuable. It's just like the process of getting through it. So what I have, for example, here is Science and Human Behavior by B.F. Skinner. That was one of the books that at the same time during graduate school I was reading alongside this verbal behavior analysis. And one of these is like, the foundation of why B.F. Skinner kind of built his version of radical behaviorism and how the field was influenced. I had to read this just for school, but I was trying to read it prior to try to get an understanding and kind of a leg up so that I wasn't so stressed during the year. But I also wanted to read this one because verbal behavior is something that you're doing in a clinic all the time when you're working with children and trying to teach them language skills. So it was very easy to kind of move towards this one, but this one was also extremely important. The technique that I was taught by a brilliant behavior analyst by the name of Mark. Don't know if he follows any of this sort of stuff anymore. If you are, Mark, what's up? Was very simple. It was to read first a chapter of the thicker, harder thing, whatever that is for you. In this case, Science and Human Behavior. I'd read one chapter of that. And then what I'll do is I'll hop over and I'll read a chapter of the one that I can use immediately. Here's the key thing. Conceptual, philosophical stuff, things like this, or leaning this sort of direction, these are harder to get through. They don't have as immediate applicable, it doesn't have immediate applicability in your life. However, verbal behavior analysis, this actually teaches me ways to assess, teach, and measure whether or not I'm effectively teaching verbal behavior analytic skill sets, so verbal behavior, teaching children how to language. And this was something where I could read this, I could go into my practice the next day, I could immediately use it. Not only are you reinforcing in this kind of weird pre-Mac principle, first read this, then this, and this starts to become valuable, but you get to actually transform lives the next day with the reading that you've used, of course, under the proper, training, supervision, guidance, etc. I use that method to go through, I'm not kidding, dozens of books per semester, or a dozen or so books per semester. I was thinking dozens per year while I was in graduate school. And honestly, that's how I was turned on to things like a lot of the conceptual philosophical stuff that I share, the inner behaviorism, the Cantors, the gold diamonds, etc. It's how I ran across Francis Mechner that we mentioned earlier. All right. So that is my hack. It's nothing special. What you're going to do is you're going to pick up 2 books. You're going to pick one up that is immediately applicable, and you're going to read first the one that's not immediately applicable, and you're going to alternate those back and forth. Chapter a day with each. You're going to fly through books. It's okay to take a day off now and then, but fly through that sort of content. So if you're watching this afterwards, that's my hack. That's it. Really simple. All right. Thanks. Like, share, subscribe, and we're going to move on to the next segment. So next segment, where are we at here? Sundance. Okay, what's up, y'all? Thanks for tuning in. OMG, Mr. Message, you saw was retracted. All right. So I've got 20 more minutes. Also, if there's anything y'all want to BS about, I'll wrap this stuff up in the next 10 or so minutes. Then we can just kind of BS for 10 minutes if you want to. Okay, what's next? All right, cool. Here we go. All right, so I recently, where do I want to start with this? Let's maybe start here. So the quick backstory about how I got into film was just the sheer interest in trying to disseminate behavior analysis. Once I picked up a camera like this, trying to get things out there, I realized was extremely difficult. And so I just started consuming as much as I could online. YouTube content, filmmaking tutorials, just literally trying to figure out how the camera works, how I can shoot things, and yes, every possible opportunity. Along that way, I had a number of behavior analysts that said, hey, you should definitely check out Sundance. You should go to a film festival, see what those are like. And in short, there's kind of two routes that I've at least this is how I see it. You can create online content like I do, publish on YouTube, something like that, get a word out, spread the word, learn how search is optimized, learn how to title correctly, create your thumbnails, and get word out there. You can also go through more traditional media houses and like media routes. And so one of those could be the film festival. So when I was working on the documentary piece that we'd put together called This Way of Thinking with Pat Fryman, I was getting feedback about, hey, why don't you take this to some sort of film festival? My understanding of that route is that you have to have a very strong network. You have to be able to get into that network of people. You have to be heard. It costs cash to actually, submit to these sort of things, pay the team that helps you get in there, and get the awareness to your film and such. I didn't have the cash for that, so I've stuck to YouTube and I've stuck to those sort of ways. But as a first step to try and understand how that sort of world works, what I did do is sign up for a Sundance pass. So last year I was scoping it out, didn't work out on my schedule. I wanted to attend in person this year, but of course, pandemic, it has shifted online. So during that, I had learned, during the 5 or 6 days that it was all up, I watched a number of different films. I'm not going to share anything other than screenshots here, so I don't get this copyrighted and myself into trouble any sort of way. I'm just going to give you a quick reflection of 9 different films that I watched that I think are interesting for behavior analysis and different systems sort of thinking perspectives. So, first of all, President. This is about a unbelievable fight for democracy that's been going on in Zimbabwe. And whether it is your interest in democracy, your interest in influencing human behavior, or social justice related issues and creating circumstances for equality, this piece looks at what happens when you have somebody that is trying to fight what I believe would be for the right reasons to be able to instill like a greater, better system for democracy and people's voices being heard and leaders leading for the sake of their country as opposed to for more of the corrupt issues. I'm not going to spoil where any of these sort of things go, but President is definitely a fantastic piece, well put together looking at that. The next one, The Most Beautiful Boy in the World. This was a look at a child actor that was picked up and what happens when massive amounts of fame and the different pressures that come with that, both mentally, behaviorally, like on yourself, as well as socially, and how those start to impact somebody's lifetime. This is pre-social media. This was, I believe, a Swedish star. I could be off on that. I believe it was a Swedish filmmaker as well that made this. But The Most Beautiful Boy in the World, whenever that's out, definitely check that one out. The next one, Bring Your Own Brigade. So with the Woolsey fire and the just uptick that we've seen the last few years, and especially over the last decade or so, of forest fires that are occurring in the world, this documentary sought out to understand it was an English documentarian, I believe, trying to understand after moving here, why do these keep occurring? How bad are they? Are they really getting worse? And what's the kind of human aspect here that's going on? Again, no spoilers here, but this is not just another look into, global warming issues, climate change issues. It is part that, but it's also looking at the human behavior aspect of why or which humans are involved with and make the decisions that lead to fire safety preparation for community level. And it even shows what happened as a result of some of the forest fires a couple years ago in California. I mean, some like 100 miles away from here, the destruction that they caused, as well as the changes that were or were not put into place. This one is very disheartening, not only from the scenes of destruction and death that it lists here, but as well as just the lack of focusing on long-term solutions that would help save lives over short-term potentially reinforcers and rewards that people like to enjoy. And that is a very American thing, for sure, but it's very present. Okay, so the next one that I'd recommend for sure is Street Gang. This was my favorite, got me emotional at the very end. I was definitely teared up. That doesn't happen in movies too often, outside of like Armageddon and some other real classics. But Sesame Street has an interesting story for behavior analysis. There was at some point contractual work done by Francis Mector and a team helping implement how to effectively teach through a television. It's about the extent I know. When I do the member meetup with him in April, I'm going to try to get a little bit more of that out, just as like a fun side question that I have for him. But I had absolutely no clue the degree to which Sesame Street had an influence on not only children, but the entire American culture. It was designed also for parents and adults to enjoy it, and it was definitely a worldwide phenomenon, and how they were able to just influence all sorts of stuff, trying to look at a medium that's traditionally not used for teaching as a teaching opportunity, and for teaching fantastic things that we need to really focus on, such as diversity, equity, inclusion. That was being highlighted, the 60s or 70s. It's a fantastic, fantastic piece. This is one of the best documentaries that I've definitely seen in the last couple of years. I'll be watching again as soon as it's out. A couple of others. Try Harder, in short, is looking at the college application process for Lowell High School. It is one of the, my understanding, one of the most prestigious public high schools that's in the San Francisco area. And it is unbelievable just how hard it is to get into these top universities. I had no clue. Anyone who gets into these top prestigious universities, my hat's off. That is not an easy, how all these children do not get directly into prestigious universities they're trying to get into with the skill sets and just how brilliant they are. It was beyond me. A couple others, just wrap this up real quick. A Glitch in the Matrix. This is a very trippy one. I watched this. It premiered at 9 or 10 at night. I watched it at night by myself, and I was kind of tripped out. What it's looking at is trying to understand simulation theory, and it's kind of building off of The Matrix. So the film, The Matrix, and it's actually underlying and including a very real situation that happened where somebody believed, as a result of getting into The Matrix and watching it over and over again, that it was possible that they were living in a simulation. It is very trippy. It's very, I've never done illicit drugs, but I believe that this is the closest experience to potentially tripping out that I've ever had as a result of how it was cut and edited. That being said, that's not knocking it in any sort of way. It's a really interesting thing when we start to think about the probability that we are in a simulation, and what implications that may have on human behavior. Again, this has influenced people in a number of different ways, whether that's the Teslas, the Elon Musks and such of the world, or if that's people like they highlight here that committed some crazy acts as a result of wondering and believing that they were in an actual matrix. All right, 3 more to finish out. Playing with Sharks is looking at the foundation of how some amazing conservationists started getting into the world of spearfishing, exploring the ocean, and then transforming into conservations and looking at the total disruption that humans have caused in the ocean, specifically with the shark population and the implications that has. Definitely recommend it. Really fantastic to see the progression of how they change and what they're about. Captains is Atari. This one is looking at a couple of best friends trying to get out of a situation as Syrian refugees in Jordan. It's a couple young children trying to leverage the opportunity of their soccer skills and their soccer club to be able to get out of the situation. Again, not going to spoil things. This was definitely one of my top favorites there. It is insane to see what other people go through on the other side of the world that you don't live through yourself. It gives you an eye, a perspective into their life. And the last one for this quick segment, Life in the Day 2020. I believe this is actually already on YouTube. It was made in 2011, so they came back and made it again for the 2021 Sundance Film Festival. It is looking at 15,000 hours of footage submitted of people around the globe on July 25th, 2020, looking at a day in the life of different folks. It is looking, like it says here, at things of love, loss, struggle, parenthood, everything in between. It's a really fascinating way and a crazy project to be sifting through so much footage and trying to paint a picture and a story of what it's like across the world. And again, this is a fantastic way to look at different people's perspectives. That's the main reason that I enjoy Sundance, enjoy documentary films, and enjoy this sort of like raw look into what's going on in the world. Just kind of gain some awareness. Remember, knowledge is power and such. So Sundance recommendations for behavior analysts. I made it through, maybe 10 or 15% of the program, and I watched things for 4 days straight. 8 to 10 hours a day, I would say, is what I was going through. So that being said, there's a huge asterisk here of I actually did not get through nearly all the content. So just make sure that you realize that this is just what I chose. There's a whole lot more out there. Okay. All right. Now, the last quick segment before I wrap up will be a channel recommendation. So not too long ago, there was a gentleman. Let's see here. Come on. Load. All right, so I'm always on this quest and thirst for knowledge. One of the channels I recently ran across was Kurzgesagt. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. I practiced like 100 times before I came on air, but I was asking for recommendations. I do this anytime I find somebody that understands clearly areas of behavior analysis or human experience outside of the realms that I do. And I was asking, what are the most interesting YouTube channels that you potentially follow and pay attention to? And he said the animation skills. When I mentioned that I want to learn animation, he said the animation skills on this channel are unbelievable. So if we scroll down here a little bit, you'll see some of the recent thumbnails. I just want to shout this out and be like, definitely check these out. They look at a whole lot of different things. You can see I click in and watch some of them. What if Earth got kicked out of the solar system? Can you upload your mind and live forever? What if we nuke the moon? How many people does nuclear energy actually kill? And you can see here, massive channel, multiple millions of views, what they go through. They have an unbelievable system though. So one of these videos, I remember which it was, but I looked at it and they reported the number of hours that they spent on that single video. And we're talking about, a 10, 12 minute video. They spent over 1,500 hours prepping for that one video and creating that one video. Loosely speaking, that is an entire person's yearly working in an 9 to 5 sort of like 40-hour week job. That would take one person an entire year to be able to create one 8 to 12 minute video. It is unbelievable the amount of research that they go through, the amount of detail that they spend, and how they create these sort of things. There's a reason why there is so many millions of views. So a few things from this. Check it out. Super interesting, depending on the topic, of course. Sometimes they're more interesting than others. The sheer amount of work that goes into creating this channel, unfathomable. Like, my hat's off. I am looking to them for trying to understand ways to just make better videos. But then also, science communication folks can take, I think, a little bit from this to understand how they present really hard concepts in a way that helps distill them down, but not necessarily lose their viewers along the path of explaining that science. And so I've been looking at them for just understanding how they distill things. There's a really cool thing that they do where in the bottom of one of their corners, they'll kind of list whenever they have a statement that seems to be quite potentially, I don't know, like a strong point. Let's say that they have a very strong point that they want to make on saying how something works. It might be contradictory or just not believed in the normal zeitgeist of the world. What they'll do is they'll drop in the corner a little thing that just says like, hey, reference number, whatever. They have some sort of system there. I can't remember if it's a reference number, if exactly how it is, but it's like an annotation system to where you can go down and see why they're making that sort of claim. So if you're interested in things like this, what I really enjoy about it is there's things about human behavior, such as this nuclear death one's the most recent one. Like, the safest bet turns out to be oftentimes nuclear energy for us to be able to create a more sustainable and safe power system, power grid. However, the perception of the issues that come with nuclear versus the other forms complete some complete dissonance, some cognitive dissonance, and we do not deploy them nearly as frequently as we should. So it's a really interesting way to look at, you know, big questions that behavior analysis could potentially tackle, such as how do we influence people to look at certain situations, and it gives you just a piece of knowledge that you would have never had had you not clicked into there. So fantastic, unbelievable, definitely recommend them. Check them out. That being said, I've only got 5 more minutes. I got to jump into a meeting, so I'm going to wrap up. That was all the planned stuff that I had there. If anyone has anything, holler at me. I know this one wasn't behavior analytic necessarily, but I had to get the ball rolling, had to get things going. It's been a little bit since I've made things. I just need to like get in the groove again. So my goal with these live streams, I will get there. My goal is that I will have it to where a couple times a week, I will have a predetermined time to where we'll be streaming. I'll be able to welcome people on, have conversations, those sort of things. I've almost got that together. I was getting pretty close and then caught COVID. Things got a little crazy, so didn't get finished with that. And so that's the goal. I'll set that schedule here soon. If anyone has anything for me, any questions, holler. Let's see. Steven, what's up? Appreciate it. Vanessa, like the diversity of the content in the films, so we'll check more Sundance films. Yeah, the Sundance stuff, they will eventually end up on some sort of platform somewhere, hopefully. Hopefully that's, you know, Netflix, something like that, something big. But that is all dependent on where the specific film gets picked up. I don't know where they'll be. If anyone does want to check out, if they do this virtual pass on Sundance again in the future, it's actually a really good deal. Like, it was roughly $300 to be able to watch all the films that they had there. And when you're talking about, that is a good chunk of cash, depending on where you live as well. But being able to consume just a bunch of different content that's out there, that, you know, if I was going to the movies, I'd be paying $10 a pop. I definitely got my money's worth out of that. So I'd suggest that if it's ever an option in the future. Video for writing habits. Steven, if you haven't heard about it, there's a book called How to Write a Lot. It is on my shelf here somewhere. It's probably out on my other one. I've got my non-behavioral analytic books out there. But How to Write a Lot, that would be the book to check out. So as long as you can read through, How to Write a Lot is what I would suggest on how to build a writing habit. Essentially is carving out, distilling, like, this is my time to work on X. I will try to remember this and be able to create something around that. But yeah, that seems to be the one that works for most people I've met, works for myself. You set a time. You say, this is my writing time. You get up, you write during that time. And like most things, if you can get a few under your belt, a few days in a row, it starts to pick up. Natural reinforcers there, and boom. So, all right, that's it. I got to get running. I will try to stream more regularly and create that schedule in the next 2 weeks. Just give me a little bit of time to organize these sort of things. And I appreciate y'all. Take care. It's been real. It's been fun. And it's actually been real fun too. All right. Catch y'all later. Peace.